Welcome to the session, Stitching Your Pattern Together. Once you've prepared your pieces in 2D and made them ready for 3D, you can now stitch your pieces together to produce a 3D sample. In this session, you will learn about the basics of stitching. You will stitch a basic dress, and in the process you will learn about the different stitching modes, available stitch properties, stitching methods, and how to simulate your pattern and check your stitching for errors. So let's begin. Here we have our basic dress pattern. Now, let's see how stitching works. In the 3D window, there are two icons that we're going to use: Stitch and Show Stitch Mode. Stitch is the tool that is used to create your stitches. Show Stitch Mode is the tool that allows you to see the stitches that you have made. All stitches appear in color, and each pair of stitches has a different color. To view the stitches, go to View, 3D Windows, Stitches. Now let's start to stitch. There are a few different methods for stitching. Point to point allows you to start stitching from one grade point to the next. Segment to segment allows you to select an entire segment between two grading points. Selection rectangle allows you to select an area around two pieces that are supposed to be stitched together. We will first start off with the eye fish dart. Bust darts are automatically stitched. Note, just like all other actions in the PDS, we stitch in a clockwise motion. Click Stitch or press U on your keyboard. We will stitch by segment. If you look at the stitch dialog, you will also see that the stitch was added, and you can see the name and type of stitch. It is best practice to refresh your 3D window each time you stitch, and then use your mouse to zoom in or move pieces to make sure the stitches are correct. So let's refresh in our 3D window. Here, you can see the blue lines which indicate the sew lines. You can use your mouse to zoom in or out or move the pieces if needed. As you can see, the stitch is not correct. This is because dart stitches are automatically flipped. So let's flip it. First we have to go to Show Stitch Mode. Select the icon or press Shift U on your keyboard. Now select the stitch. In the 3D Properties window, select the Flipped checkbox. If you make a mistake and need to delete a stitch, first make sure you are in Show Stitch Mode. Then select the stitch. Red indicates the selection. And then press the Delete key. You can also drag a rectangle over a piece and delete multiple stitches at once. Now let's stitch the dart on the back piece. We will do the same thing. Select the dart segments, refresh, and then select the Flip checkbox. Now let's stitch the side seam. This time, we will use point to point. Select the first point. Notice the mouse cursor changed to a sewing machine. While moving to the next point, you will see a red line indicating the stitch line. Now select the end point. The mouse cursor has changed again, and a number 2 is now visible. This indicates that the next segment that is clicked will be connected to this one. Notice that it automatically created 2 stitches. This is because this is a half piece. Now let's select the back piece to stitch the seams together. Click Refresh to make sure the stitches are correct. We will now stitch the shoulder seam. Click the first segment. Notice it automatically selected the second segment since this is a half piece. And now, let's stitch it to the shoulder in the back piece. Let's refresh again and check our stitches. Now let's define a symmetric stitch. We will stitch the center back. In the 3D Properties, select Symmetric. This is because this is a half piece and you want it to sew to the paired piece. It automatically selects the Flip checkbox as well. And that's about it. We have now stitched our dress. Let's refresh And now simulate to see our dress on the mannequin. Congratulations! You have successfully learned how to stitch your pattern pieces together. You can now make changes to your pattern, like shorten the dress, add a cut line, etc. Or you can add texture and colors. Please move on to the next sessions to see how.